The text arrived at 2:47 p.m. on December 23rd. I was basting the turkey when my phone buzzed against the granite counter, the one I'd spent the morning polishing until it gleamed, removing every fingerprint, every trace of daily life to make room for the holiday I'd been planning since October. 22 pounds of organic, free-range turkey from the butcher on Maple Street, the one who knew me by name and always saved the best birds for his regular customers. Brined for 3 days in a mixture my mother taught me 50 years ago, before I even knew what marriage looked like, before I understood that love could calcify into routine and then evaporate entirely, leaving only habit in its wake. I wiped my hands on the dish towel, the linen one with hand-embroidered holly that Robert's mother had given us for our first Christmas together, 46 years ago now, though Robert had been gone for 8, and the towel had outlasted him. Outlasted the marriage in its final brittle years, outlasted everything except my muscle memory of reaching for it whenever my hands were wet. The message was from Laura, my daughter. "So sorry, Mom. Kids have flu. Can't make it tomorrow. Maybe New Year's." I read it twice, then 3 times. The turkey continued to roast behind me at 325 degrees, filling the kitchen with the smell of butter and thyme, rosemary and thyme itself. Hours and hours of preparation that had started before dawn when I'd gotten up to begin the giblet stock, chopping celery with the precision of ritual, dicing onions until my eyes watered, though I told myself it was only the sulfur compounds, nothing more. The dining table was already set. I had done it the night before, unable to sleep, getting up at 2 a.m. to arrange the good china, the Lennox Christmas pattern that we'd received as a wedding gift, and used exactly 12 times in 4 decades. Always for Christmas, always carefully hand-washed and returned to its felt-lined box in the attic, where it waited in darkness for another year. Crystal stemware that caught the light from the chandelier, cloth napkins folded into swans, a YouTube tutorial I'd watched 6 times until my aging fingers remembered the sequence, silver candlesticks polished until I could see my reflection, older every year, the soft erosion of time visible in every line, every shadow. 3 place settings, Laura, David and their daughter Sophie, 12 years old now, my granddaughter, growing into someone I barely recognized from month to month because the months between visits had stretched into seasons, seasons into years of too busy and next time and things are just crazy right now. Emily, Laura's older daughter, 19, would be working at the hospital where she was doing her EMT training. She had texted me herself 3 days ago, apologetic, explaining she'd taken a holiday shift so a mother of young children could be home. That was Emily, always thinking of others, the one who still called, who visited when she could, who remembered my birthday without prompting and sent me articles about books she thought I'd like, with notes that said, "Made me think of you," instead of the perfunctory Happy B-Day texts that arrived from everyone else exactly at midnight, clearly set as phone reminders that went off while they slept. I looked at Laura's message again. The turkey timer hadn't gone off yet. I had 2 pies cooling on the counter, pumpkin and apple, both from scratch. Both recipes I'd learned from my grandmother, who had taught me that store-bought was surrender, that love meant effort, that family was worth the ache in your wrists from rolling dough and the burn on your thumb from the oven rack. Maybe New Year's. Not we'll be there New Year's. Not can we reschedule. Maybe. The word sat in my chest like something cold and dense, a stone that had been growing there for years without my permission, accumulating weight with every cancelled visit, every "I'll call you back" that never came, every promise that dissolved into silence. I was invisible to them except when they needed something. I could feel the truth of it settling into my bones, making itself at home in the spaces where other things used to live: hope, expectation, the foolish belief that if I just kept trying, kept preparing, kept offering, eventually they would see me as something more than a convenience. Christmas music played from the living room speaker, Bing Crosby dreaming of whiteness and nostalgia. The house was too clean, too quiet, too ready for people who were not coming. I set the phone down carefully, face down so I wouldn't have to see if she sent another message, another casual devastation delivered in under 20 words. My hands weren't trembling. That surprised me. I had thought they would tremble, thought there would be some physical manifestation of the thing that was cracking open inside me, but there was only a strange, spreading numbness, a sense of watching myself from a distance as I opened the oven, tested the turkey with a meat thermometer, confirmed what I already knew. It would be perfect. It would be perfect, and I would eat it alone. I spent Christmas Eve finishing the preparations because I didn't know what else to do. The habits of decades don't dissolve in a single afternoon. I made the cranberry sauce from fresh berries, sugar, orange zest. I prepared the green bean casserole, my mother-in-law's recipe, the one Laura had once called the only good thing about holidays at Grandma's house, said casually over the phone 5 years ago, not knowing I was standing close enough to hear. I whipped sweet potatoes until they were cloud-light, folded in butter and cream, topped them with pecans and brown sugar that would caramelize into something golden and perfect under the broiler. The house filled with smells that had nowhere to go, no one to receive them. I called Emily at 9 p.m. She answered on the second ring. "Merry Christmas Eve, Grandma." Her voice was warm despite the exhaustion I could hear underneath. "The hospital was busy," she said. "A lot of people spending the holidays in emergency rooms because bodies don't care about calendars." "How are you?" "I'm good, honey." The lie came easily. "Your mum tell you about tomorrow?" A pause, long enough that I knew Laura hadn't told her. "What about tomorrow?" "They're not coming. Sophie has the flu." "Oh." Another pause, this one different. "Grandma, I'm so sorry. Do you want me to try to come by?" "I could probably swing a few hours between shifts." "No." I said it more sharply than I intended. "No, sweetheart. You're where you need to be. I'm fine. I just wanted to hear your voice. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing important. Her training, a patient who'd thanked her, the coffee that tasted like burnt plastic in the hospital cafeteria. When we hung up, the silence in the house had a different quality, a density that pressed against my ribs. Christmas morning, I woke at dawn out of habit, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table in my bathrobe, the old blue terry cloth one that had been Robert's, too big for me but soft from 1,000 washings, and watched the sun come up over the neighbourhood where every house but mine would soon fill with voices, with children tearing into wrapping paper with the chaos of family. At 10 a.m. I took a shower, put on the dress I'd bought specifically for today, deep red, velvet, with a silver brooch in the shape of a snowflake that Robert had given me on our 30th anniversary. I did my hair, put on lipstick, because I had spent 57 years learning that presentation matters, that effort has inherent dignity even when no one sees it, that sometimes you dress up for yourself because the alternative is admitting you're not worth the effort. I set the table for one, moved the other 2 place settings back to the china cabinet with care, the swan napkins unfolding into ordinary rectangles in my hands, lit the candles anyway, carved the turkey, plated it with all the sides I had made, poured myself a glass of wine from the bottle of Bordeaux I'd been saving, the expensive one David had brought last year, and I'd saved for a special occasion that I now understood would never come. I sat down at my dining table, alone, and raised my glass to no one. "Merry Christmas," I said aloud. My voice echoed in the empty house. I ate slowly, methodically, tasting nothing. The food was perfect. Of course it was perfect. I had made it perfect for people who couldn't be bothered to give me more than 5 hours' notice that I wasn't worth their time. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed. I considered not looking. Let it sit there on the counter where I'd left it, face down, a small act of rebellion. But habit won. I wiped my hands, walked over, picked it up. Facebook notification. Laura had posted a photo. I opened it. There they were. Laura, David, Sophie, and Laura's sister-in-law's family. 8 people crowded around a table, laughing, champagne glasses raised, a feast spread before them. The caption read, "Blessed to spend Christmas with family, so grateful for these people." Posted 20 minutes ago. I stared at the screen until it went dark, turned it face down again, walked back to the table on legs that felt distant from my body, mechanical, operated by someone else while I watched from far away. Sat down, looked at my plate. Sophie didn't have the flu. They'd gone somewhere else, somewhere better, somewhere that didn't include me. I picked up my fork, put it down, picked it up again. The trembling started in my hands and moved up my arms into my chest until I had to press my palms flat against the table to make it stop. The silver candlesticks reflected flame, distorted and dancing. The good china gleamed under light that had no purpose. I had spent 2 days preparing a meal for ghosts. I didn't call Laura, I didn't text. I cleared the table in silence, the scrape of china against china, the only sound besides the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, another inheritance from Robert's family. Another object that had outlived its original purpose, but continued marking time anyway, indifferent to whether anyone was listening. The leftovers filled the refrigerator. Enough food for a week, maybe more. I stood there with the door open, cold air washing over me, looking at container after container of effort that no one wanted. Turkey in the Tupperware from 1987, mashed potatoes in Pyrex from the set Laura gave me 10 years ago for Mother's Day, back when she still made gestures. Cranberry sauce in a bowl with a crack running through it that I'd meant to throw away but never did because it still functioned. And I had been raised to believe that function mattered more than appearance, that you didn't discard things just because they were damaged. I closed the refrigerator. The next day, a card arrived in the mail. Generic. Red envelope, snowflake stamp. Inside, a printed message. Sorry we missed Christmas. Love, Laura, David and Sophie. Not handwritten, printed. She had bought a box of cards with pre-written apologies and simply signed the bottom, not even bothering to add a personal note to acknowledge that what she was apologizing for was lying to me, abandoning me, choosing a sister-in-law's gathering over her own mother. I put the card on the kitchen counter, left it there, propped against the fruit bowl, where I could see it every time I walked past. A reminder. Of what exactly, I wasn't sure yet. But I needed to see it, needed to keep seeing it, needed the evidence of my own erasure to stay visible until I decided what to do with the anger that was slowly burning through the numbness like acid eating through metal. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a strange suspension. I went through motions, made meals for one, watched television without seeing it, answered the phone when Emily called twice, both times brief conversations where she was clearly exhausted from work and I was clearly not myself, though I tried to pretend otherwise, and we both participated in the polite fiction. Laura didn't call. On December 29th, Emily showed up at my door unannounced. She stood on the porch in her EMT jacket, snowflakes caught in her dark hair, her face pinched with cold and something else, something that looked like guilt mixed with defiance. "Can I come in, Grandma?" I stepped aside. She entered, bringing cold air and the smell of winter with her, stamping snow from her boots on the mat just inside the door, a small courtesy that made my throat tight. We sat in the living room, the Christmas tree still up in the corner, lights off, a monument to optimism that now felt like a taunt. I had planned to take it down on the 26th, but hadn't found the energy. It stood there in its artificial cheerfulness, unaware it was morning. "Mum told me you wouldn't answer her calls," Emily said without preamble. "Your mother hasn't called. She said she left voicemails." She did. 4 of them. I had listened to the first 10 seconds of the first one and then deleted them all, her voice in my ear saying, "Mum, we need to talk." In that tone that meant she wanted to manage me, to smooth this over with explanations that would make her feel better about her choices without requiring her to actually change anything. Emily's hands twisted in her lap. She feels terrible about Christmas. Does she? Not a question. Emily heard it, flinched slightly. "She should have told you the truth," Emily said quietly. "That they were going to Aunt Sarah's, that Sophie was fine. I told her that was wrong. We fought about it." "Did you?" "Yeah." Emily's voice was small now. "She said you'd make her feel guilty if she told you she picked Sarah's over yours, that you'd make it into a big thing. So she just made up the flu thing. And then she got mad at me for being mad at her about it." Silence filled the space between us. The radiator hissed in the corner, old pipes complaining, another sound of a house that had stood for 60 years and would stand for 60 more, indifferent to the small human dramas unfolding inside it. "Grandma," Emily said, and now there were tears in her voice. "I'm so sorry. You shouldn't have been alone. You shouldn't have found out like that. I wanted to come, but she told me not to. Said you needed space, but I knew that was bullshit, Emily. Sorry, I knew it wasn't true. I should have come anyway." I looked at her. 19 years old, dark eyes like Laura's, but different somehow, warmer, more present, actually seeing me instead of seeing through me to whatever need I was supposed to fulfill. She had her grandfather's hands, Robert's hands, long-fingered and steady. "You were working," I said. "You were exactly where you should have been. But I was fine." Another lie. They came so easily now. But Emily was young, and she was crying, and she was the only one who had bothered to show up, to care, to notice I existed beyond my function as grandmother/emergency bank account. Because that's what I'd become, wasn't it? The realization settled over me with Laura's crumpled card in my pocket as proof. I wasn't a mother to Laura anymore. I was a resource, a convenience, someone who would wire money when asked, who would babysit when needed, who would be available for holidays unless something better came along, who would absorb disappointment without complaint, because that's what grandmothers did. They smiled and understood and never ever made their children feel bad about treating them like furniture. "Stay for dinner," I heard myself say. "I have approximately 40 pounds of leftovers." Emily laughed, a wet sound. "Okay." We ate turkey sandwiches at the kitchen counter, not bothering with the dining room, not needing the performance of it. Emily talked about the hospital, about a woman who'd gone into labour in the ambulance, about the strange intimacy of holding someone's hand while their world changed, I listened, contributed small noises of acknowledgement, felt something in my chest that might have been warmth or might have been the last dying ember of familial affection, giving light only because it didn't yet know it should go dark. When she left, she hugged me hard. "I love you, Grandma." "I know, honey." After the door closed, I sat in the quiet house and understood with perfect clarity that Emily's love was real and Laura's was a transaction I had been funding for 20 years. On January 2nd, I woke up at 5 a.m. with the clarity that sometimes comes after sleepless nights, when exhaustion burns away everything except truth. I made coffee, opened my laptop, logged into my bank account, and I started looking. 20 years of transactions. I scrolled backward through time, watching my money flow out in a steady stream toward Laura and David, tributaries feeding a river that had never once flowed back. College tuition for Emily, then Sophie. Down payment on their first house. Car repairs, medical bills, emergency loans that had never been repaid because at some point we'd stopped calling them loans and started calling them help, as if renaming the transaction transformed it into something that didn't require reciprocity. I made a list, methodical, dated, everything I could find. $18,000 for Emily's college fund, paid directly over 4 years. $35,000 for their house down payment in 2015. $4,200 for David's car repair after the accident. $12,000 for Sophie's braces and dental surgery, $8,500 for various emergencies, roof repair, broken furnace, property tax shortfall. Then the ongoing expenses, $450 per month since 2019 for Sophie's private school tuition, automatically debited from my checking account on the 1st of every month for 4 years. That was $21,600, and I hadn't thought about it in months because automatic payments become invisible after a while. Just another line item disappearing from your balance, noticed only when you occasionally wonder why your retirement fund isn't growing despite regular deposits. $200 per month since 2020 for their family cell phone plan because David's company had stopped covering it and they'd asked if I could help out for a few months until they got back on their feet. 3 years, $7,200. Car insurance for Sophie's vehicle, registered in my name for better rates, paid from my account. $150 per month for 2 years, $3,600. The numbers accumulated like sediment, layer after layer, a geological record of how much my presence in their lives cost me. I had never added it up before. Had never wanted to see it laid out like this, stark and undeniable, a spreadsheet of my own erasure. Total, $110,100 over 20 years. I stared at that number for a long time, long enough that my coffee went cold, long enough that the sun came up outside my kitchen window, pale January light filtering through clouds. Long enough that something fundamental shifted in my chest, a tectonic plate sliding into a new position, grinding against old certainties until they cracked. $110,000. Not gifts given joyfully, not support offered freely. Those things would have come with gratitude, with acknowledgement, with phone calls that weren't asking for something, with visits that happened because they wanted to see me, not because they needed me to babysit or wire money or solve whatever latest crisis had arisen in their perpetually chaotic finances. This was a fee for existing in their lives, for maintaining the fiction of family. I had been paying for my daughter's tolerance of my presence. The thought sat in my throat like bile. At 9 a.m., when I knew the bank would be open, I called, asked to speak with my account manager. Teresa had handled my accounts for 15 years, ever since Robert died and I'd needed to reorganize everything, transform joint accounts into single name accounts, learn how to be financially autonomous after 40 years of partnership. She remembered me. Her voice was warm when she picked up. Mrs. Peterson, Happy New Year. How can I help you today? I need to cancel some automatic payments. Of course. Which ones? I read from my list. Sophie's school tuition, the family cell phone plan, the car insurance. Teresa was quiet, professionally neutral, asking only the necessary questions. Which account, effective when, did I need to speak with a financial advisor about restructuring? Effective immediately, I said. My voice was steady. I was surprised by that steadiness, by the absence of doubt. This was right. I knew it was right with a certainty I hadn't felt about anything in years. And yes, I'd like to schedule an appointment with an advisor, soon as possible. I have an opening tomorrow at 11 a.m. I'll be there. After I hung up, I sat very still. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your eardrums, that makes you aware of your own heartbeat, your own breathing, the small sounds of a body existing in space. My phone sat on the counter, dark and silent. It would ring soon. Definitely when the payments bounced, when their school called about the tuition, when T-Mobile shut off their service, when the insurance company sent a cancellation notice. It would ring and I would not answer. That afternoon, 3 voicemails arrived within 20 minutes of each other. Laura, Mum, hi, something weird happened. The school called about Sophie's tuition payment not going through. Can you call me back? It's probably just a bank error or something. Thanks, David. Hey Diane, it's David. So our phone bill got declined somehow. I think there's an issue with the auto pay. Could you check on that? We're getting notices from T-Mobile. Thanks, appreciate it. Laura again. Mum, seriously, where are you? The insurance company sent a cancellation email for Sophie's car. I don't know what's going on, but we need to talk. Call me back as soon as you get this. I listened to each one once, deleted them, made myself a cup of tea, Earl Grey, with honey, the way Robert used to take it, a habit I'd picked up from him and kept even after he was gone. Because sometimes we carry on the small rituals of the dead as a way of keeping them alive, or keeping ourselves tethered to who we were when they knew us. The phone rang again at 4:30 p.m. Laura. I watched it ring until it went to voicemail, sipped my tea. The honey dissolved slowly into the hot liquid, swirling patterns of amber in dark brown. Temporary beauty before equilibrium. Another voicemail. I didn't listen to this one. At 6 p.m, a text. Mum, this isn't funny. What's going on? Call me. I read it. Set the phone face down, finished my tea. The bank was the same branch I'd been using for 35 years, back when it was called First National and not whatever corporate merger name it carried now. Back when they knew every customer by face and kept lollipops in a jar by the teller windows for children. Teresa met me in the lobby, led me to her office, the same office where Robert and I had signed mortgage papers in 1989, where I'd wept quietly while filling out beneficiary change forms in 2017, where I had slowly learned what it meant to be financially solitary in a world designed for couples. Mrs. Peterson. Teresa settled into her chair, opened a file on her computer. I've pulled up the accounts we discussed. The automatic payments have been cancelled as of yesterday. They'll receive notifications from the respective companies, and the next scheduled debits will not process. Good. Now, about the financial restructuring. Teresa folded her hands on the desk, her expression carefully neutral in that way bank employees have, trained to show neither judgment nor approval. Did you want to discuss shifting some assets? Estate planning? We have advisors who specialise in that. Yes. I had been thinking about this since the phone call yesterday, lying awake in the dark, watching shadows move across the ceiling as cars passed outside, their headlights creating temporary geometry on white paint. I want to create a trust for my granddaughter Emily, accessible when she turns 25, not before, and it needs to be structured so her parents can't touch it, can't borrow against it, can't convince her to loan them anything. Teresa's fingers moved across her keyboard, making notes. That's definitely doable. An irrevocable trust with specific conditions. You'll want to speak with our estate attorney about the details, but yes, we can ensure the funds are protected. How much were you thinking? I had done the math last night, 250,000. Half of what remained in my retirement accounts after decades of slow, careful saving, after Robert's life insurance, after his pension that I'd been living on along with Social Security. Enough to give Emily security, a house down payment, graduate school, a cushion for the early years of building a career in a profession that notoriously underpaid people who ran toward emergencies while everyone else ran away. 250,000. Teresa didn't blink. And your primary will? I want to change it. Everything that would have gone to my daughter Laura should go to the trust for Emily instead. Laura gets nothing. Now Teresa did pause, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Mrs. Peterson, I'm not a legal advisor, but I do want to make sure you've considered all the implications. This kind of change can cause significant family conflict. Are you certain? I'm certain. All right. More typing. I'll send a message to Richard Summers. He's our estate attorney. He'll draw up the paperwork for both the trust and the will amendment. It usually takes about a week for the initial documents. He'll want to meet with you, go over the details. Make sure everything is structured according to your wishes. How soon can I meet with him? Let me check. Teresa clicked through screens. He has an opening next Thursday at 2 p.m. I'll take it. We spent the next 40 minutes going through details, account numbers, beneficiary forms, tax implications, questions about my current health and mental competency that were legally required, and that I answered with patience, even though they made my face hot. Yes, I was of sound mind. Yes, I understood what I was doing. Yes, I had thought about this carefully. No, I didn't need more time to consider. The cancellations will show up on their statements within 48 hours, Teresa said as she walked me to the door. The school and insurance companies will contact them directly about payment. You should prepare for, well, they'll probably have questions. I'm sure they will. Outside, the January air was sharp and clean, the kind of cold that makes you aware of your lungs, of your body's efforts to maintain warmth in an indifferent world. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, car keys in my gloved hand, watching people move past me, young mothers with strollers, businessmen on lunch breaks, elderly couples walking slowly, arms linked against the ice. I had just cut my daughter out of my will. The thought should have hurt more than it did. I waited for guilt, for second thoughts, for the maternal instinct that was supposed to override everything else, make me rush back inside and undo what I'd done. But there was only a strange, spreading sense of relief, like setting down something heavy you hadn't realized you'd been carrying until your shoulders finally stopped aching. My phone buzzed in my purse. I didn't check it. The week that followed had the quality of waiting for a bomb to detonate. I knew the explosion would come. It was only a matter of when. I spent the time quietly, read books I'd been meaning to get to, watched old films, made small meals for one and ate them at the kitchen counter, not bothering with the dining room anymore, not seeing the point in performances without an audience. The house felt different now, not empty, but simplified, stripped of expectation. Emily called twice. We talked about her work, about the book she was reading, about nothing important. She didn't mention her mother. I didn't ask. Laura left 6 more voicemails I didn't listen to. On January 9th, Laura's car pulled into my driveway at 3:30 p.m. I was in the living room rereading Middlemarch when I heard the engine, then the door slam, then footsteps on the porch, hard and quick and unmistakably angry. The doorbell rang once, twice, then became a sustained pressing, someone leaning on it with vindictive force. I marked my page, set the book down, walked to the door, in no particular hurry, opened it. Laura stood on my porch in a black wool coat, her face flushed, either from cold or fury or both. Her car still running in the driveway, exhaust clouding in the winter air like visible rage. "What the hell, Mum?" "Hello, Laura." "Don't hello, Laura me. What is going on? Why aren't you answering your phone? Why did you cancel the school payments, the insurance, the cell phone plan? Do you have any idea what you just did?" I stood in the doorway, my hand on the doorknob, not inviting her in. A line in the sand, the threshold. "Come in, we should talk." Laura stood in my living room, not sitting, not removing her coat, radiating barely contained fury like heat from a stove. I sat down in Robert's chair, my chair now, I had to remind myself. Though I still thought of it as his, still felt like I was borrowing space that belonged to someone else. "I'm waiting for an explanation," Laura said. "Sit down. I'm fine standing." "I'm not. And this conversation is going to take a while. So sit." She sat, perched on the edge of the sofa, coat still on, handbag clutched in her lap like a shield. "You cancelled Sophie's tuition," Laura said. "Do you know what that means? She's in the middle of the school year. They sent a notice that she can't return to campus until the account is current. She's been crying for 2 days. Sophie should cry to her parents about that. We can't afford it right now, neither can I." "That's not true. You have Robert's pension. You have Social Security. You have plenty. I have what I earned, what Robert and I saved for 40 years. What's left after raising you, after helping you get started, after 2 decades of supplementing your life because you and David refused to live within your means." Laura's face went white. "That's not fair, isn't it? We've had expenses. So have I. You live alone. You don't have kids to support. I had one. I raised her by myself after her father died. I worked 2 jobs to put her through college because she refused to take out loans. I gave her the down payment on her first house. I paid for her daughter's dental surgeries. I've been paying her family's cell phone bill for 3 years. And when I needed her to show up for Christmas one day, Laura, one single day out of the entire year, she lied to me and went somewhere else." Silence. Laura's mouth opened, closed. "Mum, you posted photos on Facebook while I sat in this house alone, eating a turkey I'd spent 2 days preparing for you. You were at Sarah's table, toasting your blessings, grateful for family that apparently didn't include me." "It wasn't like that. What was it like then?" Laura's hands twisted in her lap, fingers pulling at the leather of her purse. "Sarah invited us months ago. I didn't know how to tell you. I knew you'd be upset. So you told me Sophie was sick. I thought it would be easier." easier for who? No answer. For me? I pressed. You think it was easier for me to believe my granddaughter was sick than to know you chose someone else? Or easier for you because you wouldn't have to feel guilty about what you were doing? I just. Laura's voice cracked slightly. I didn't want to fight, so instead you left me alone on Christmas with a lie, and when I found out the truth, you sent me a printed card that said, "Sorry we missed it," as if you'd had car trouble instead of deliberately excluding me. It wasn't deliberate. It was exactly deliberate. You made a choice. You chose Sarah's family over your own mother. That's fine, Laura. You're allowed to make that choice. But you're not allowed to lie to me about it, and you're not allowed to keep treating me like a cash machine who exists to fund your life while you give me nothing back. That's not true, Laura said, but her voice was weak now, defensive. I love you, do you? The question hung between us. Laura stared at me like I'd struck her. Do you love me, I said again, or do you love what I give you? Because from where I'm sitting, Laura, I can't tell the difference anymore. That's not fair, she repeated, tears starting now, the kind of tears that were supposed to make me stop. Make me back down, make me soften and apologize for being unreasonable. You're my mother. I call you, I visit. You call when you need money. You visit when you need a babysitter. That's not when was the last time you called, just to talk. When was the last time you asked about my life, my day? Anything that wasn't a preamble to asking me for something. Silence again, longer this time. Laura's face was wet now, mascara smudging slightly under her eyes, and I felt nothing. That was the strange part. The part that told me how far I'd already travelled from the woman who would have stopped this conversation by now, who would have soothed and smoothed and made it better for everyone, except herself. I'm not cancelling the payments to punish you, I said quietly. I'm doing it because I can't afford to fund your life anymore. But you just said you have money. I have enough money to live on for the rest of my life if I'm careful. What I don't have is enough to keep giving you $5,000 a month while you treat me like I'm invisible. 5,000. Laura stopped, recalculated, went pale again. Yes, 5,000 a month, on average, for the past 4 years. Before that, it was sporadic, large chunks for emergencies. But since Sophie started at Preston Academy, it's been steady. I added it up last week. Would you like to know the total? No, Laura whispered. $110,000 over 20 years, and I'm done. Laura stood up abruptly. So this is about money? No, this is about respect. Money is just how you measure the respect you don't have for me. I can't believe you're saying this. I can't believe it took me this long to say it. Laura grabbed her purse, stood, turned toward the door, then turned back. Sophie needs that tuition. Then you and David need to pay it. We can't. Then she goes to public school, like I did, like you did. Preston is one of the best schools in the state. Then it's worth finding a way to afford it yourselves. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. You might not know the difference anymore. Laura's face contorted. I'm your daughter. I know. My voice was soft now, not angry, just tired, old in a way I hadn't felt until this moment, until I watched my daughter realize that I had become a person instead of a resource, and she didn't like it. You're my daughter, and I love you, but loving you doesn't mean letting you erase me. She left without another word, coat still buttoned, heels clicking hard against the hardwood floor, the door slamming behind her with enough force that the windows rattled. I sat in the silent house and waited for regret. It didn't come. The following Thursday, I sat in Richard Summers's office at the bank, listening to him explain the documents spread before me with the careful patience of someone who deals with elderly clients daily and knows how to speak slowly without being condescending. The trust is structured as irrevocable, he said, pointing to a paragraph heavy with legal language. Once you sign, the assets transfer to the trust permanently. You cannot change your mind. The funds are locked for Emily's benefit until she turns 25, at which point she gains full access. And Laura cannot contest it? She can certainly try, but the structure makes it very difficult. The trust is set up with you as grantor, me as trustee, and Emily as beneficiary. Your daughter has no legal claim to funds in a trust that was never hers to begin with. Good. He moved to the next document. The amended will removes Laura Peterson Chen as beneficiary and redirects those assets to Emily Peterson's trust. The language is explicit. In the event of your death, your estate, house, remaining bank accounts, possessions, liquidates and flows into the trust. Nothing to Laura. The only exception is personal effects, which you've designated as at Emily's discretion. Correct. Richard sat back in his leather chair, steepled his fingers, looked at me with the expression of someone choosing his words carefully. Mrs. Peterson, I have to ask, and I'm not trying to talk you out of this, but I am legally obligated to ensure you understand the implications. Have you considered that this decision will likely destroy your relationship with your daughter? It's already destroyed. You might reconcile. I might. But if I do, it won't be because I paid her to tolerate me. Richard nodded slowly. All right. Then there's just one more thing. You've designated Emily as your healthcare proxy and power of attorney. Are you sure you don't want to name someone with more life experience? Emily is only 19. Emily is the only one I trust to make decisions in my best interest instead of her own. Fair enough. He slid a pen across the desk. Initial here, here, and here. Sign at the bottom of each page. And here on the witness form. I read everything first. slowly, thoroughly. Robert's voice in my head: never sign what you don't understand, even when the lawyer seems impatient, even when you feel like you're holding up the process. The words were dense, full of whereases and heretofores, but the meaning was clear. I was taking control of my death, the same way I'd finally taken control of my life. I signed. My handwriting looked old on the page, shakier than I remembered it being, the cursive of a generation that had learned penmanship as a school subject and still used it daily. Diane Peterson. Over and over. Each signature an act of reclamation. "Congratulations," Richard said when I finished. Gathering the documents into a folder, "Everything is official. I'll file these with the county and send copies to you and Emily within the week." "Does Emily need to know now?" "Not if you don't want her to. The trust exists independently. She'll be notified when she turns 25, or in the event of your death, whichever comes first. Then I'll tell her myself when the time is right." Outside, the January afternoon was grey and cold, snow threatening in the weight of the clouds. I sat in my car for a long moment before starting the engine, looking at the bank building, at the other cars in the parking lot, at the ordinary architecture of a day that was not ordinary, at least not for me. I had just ensured that Laura would inherit nothing. The finality of it should have felt heavier, should have crushed me with guilt or doubt, or maternal instinct overriding logic. Instead, I felt light, untethered, free. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Coffee tomorrow? My treat." I replied, "I'd love that." Then I drove home through streets I'd driven for 35 years, past houses where families were gathering for dinner, past the park where I'd pushed Laura on swings when she was small and the world had seemed simpler, past the library where I'd taken her every Saturday for story time and she'd sat in my lap listening to other people's narratives. Absorbing the architecture of beginning, middle, end, learning that stories have resolution, though she'd somehow missed the lesson that resolution requires honesty. At home I made dinner: chicken breast, roasted vegetables, a salad with the expensive olive oil I usually saved for company. I set the table properly, the regular plates, not the china, but still placemat, napkin, silverware in the correct positions. I poured myself a glass of wine, the good Pinot Noir from the rack in the basement, the one I'd been saving for an occasion that I now understood would never come unless I created it myself. I sat down at the table, the same table where I'd eaten Christmas dinner alone, where I'd set 3 places that had gone unfilled. And I raised my glass to the empty room. "To freedom," I said aloud. My voice didn't echo this time. The house had accepted my solitude, had stopped treating it as temporary. After dinner, I opened my laptop, found the email from Laura that had arrived 3 days ago, the one I'd been avoiding. "Mum, I've been thinking about what you said. You're right that I haven't been considerate of your feelings. I'm sorry about Christmas. I should have told you the truth. Can we talk? I miss you. L. I read it twice. Then I started typing. Laura, I received your email. I appreciate the apology. I want you to know that I love you and that doesn't change. But I need you to understand that our relationship can't continue the way it has been. I'm not a bank. I'm not a convenience. I'm not someone who exists to make your life easier at the expense of my own dignity. The financial support is ending permanently. Sophie's tuition, your cell phone plan, the insurance, all of it. If you need help, you'll have to ask. And I'll decide on a case-by-case basis if I'm able to give it. But the automatic flow of money is done. I've also made changes to my will and created a trust for Emily. This is not a punishment. This is me making sure that at least one person in this family benefits from everything your father and I worked for. If you want to rebuild our relationship, it needs to be because you want me in your life, not because you want access to my resources. If that's not something you're interested in, I understand. But I'm done pretending that what we have is enough. I hope we can find a new way forward, but if we can't, I'll be okay. Love, Mom. I read it 3 times. Made small edits. Read it again. Then I pressed send before I could second-guess myself. The email flew into the digital void. I closed the laptop, went upstairs, changed into my nightgown, the old cotton one, soft from 1,000 washings, comfortable in a way that new things never are. Got into bed with Middlemarch. And read until my eyes grew heavy. Somewhere in the house, my phone buzzed with Laura's response. I didn't get up to check it. Sleep came easier than it had in weeks. 3 weeks later, I met Emily for breakfast at the diner on Main Street, the one that had been there since before she was born, with its red vinyl booths and laminated menus that offered the same 20 items they'd served in 1987. Emily arrived in her EMT uniform, hair pulled back, face tired but smiling. "Rough shift?" I asked as she slid into the booth across from me. 36 hours. But I'm off for the next 2 days, so I'll survive. She flagged down the waitress, ordered coffee and eggs, turned back to me. "You look good, Grandma." "Do I?" "Yeah, different. I don't know, lighter maybe?" I smiled. "Maybe I am." We talked about small things while we ate. Her training, her apartment, the cat she was thinking about adopting from the shelter. She didn't mention Laura. I didn't either. The absence sat between us like a third person at the table. Acknowledged but not addressed, not yet. Finally, halfway through her second cup of coffee, Emily said quietly, "Mum told me about the will." "Did she? She's really upset." "I imagine she is." Emily's hands wrapped around her mug, seeking warmth. "She said you cut her out completely." That everything goes to me. That's correct. Grandma. Emily's voice was small. That's a lot. I don't need. It's not about what you need. It's about what you've earned. Earned? You show up, you call, you ask how I am, and wait to hear the answer. You see me as a person, not a function. I reached across the table, covered her hand with mine. The money is yours because you're the only one who treated me like I mattered, even when I wasn't giving you anything. Emily's eyes filled. I didn't do anything special. You loved me without expecting payment. That's more special than you know. We sat in silence for a moment. The diner clattered around us. Dishes, conversation, the hiss of the griddle, the ordinary sounds of people living ordinary lives that were none the less precious, none the less worthy of attention. Have you talked to her? Emily asked finally. To Mom? We've exchanged emails. She apologized. I explained my boundaries. We're finding a new balance. Will it work? I don't know, but it has to be real this time. I won't go back to being someone she tolerates in exchange for access to my bank account. Emily nodded slowly. She asked me to talk to you, to convince you to change your mind about the will. And I told her no. Emily's voice was steady. I told her she should have thought about that before she treated you the way she did. Pride bloomed in my chest, warm and unexpected. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Emily squeezed my hand. You taught me that. You taught me that family doesn't get a free pass to hurt you just because they're family. A good tacker sing. Every time you showed up, even when you were the only one showing up. Every time you were kind, even when no one was being kind back. You taught me that you can love someone and still have boundaries. That you can say no and still be a good person. I felt my throat tighten, felt the heat behind my eyes that meant tears, though I wouldn't let them fall. Not here, not now. This was not a moment for sadness. This was a moment for recognition, for seeing yourself reflected back in someone who had actually been paying attention. I'm proud of you, I said, more than you know. I'm proud of you too, Grandma. I'm alone now more than I used to be. That's true. Laura and I speak occasionally, careful conversations that skirt around the real topics, that maintain civility without warmth, that acknowledge the relationship has changed into something neither of us quite recognizes yet. Maybe it will grow into something honest. Maybe it won't. I've made my peace with both possibilities. Sophie calls sometimes, brief, awkward conversations where she talks about school, public school now, a good one, where she's apparently thriving despite the initial protests, and I listen and encourage and don't mention the money, don't mention the price her parents paid for their assumptions about my limitless generosity. Emily visits every week. We have breakfast at the diner, or dinner here at my house, or sometimes we just sit in the living room reading separate books in comfortable silence, the way families do when they actually want to be together instead of performing togetherness for an audience of obligation. The house is quieter than it was, but it's my quiet now, my space. I wake when I want. I eat what I want. I spend money on myself without guilt. A new coat, theatre tickets, the expensive coffee beans from the place downtown, small luxuries that I had been denying myself for years while I funneled money toward people who never said thank you. The dining table sits empty most days. I don't set it for one anymore. That was a performance of dignity that I no longer need. But when Emily comes over, I take out the good china, not to impress her, but because beautiful things deserve to be used, and using them with someone who appreciates the gesture is its own form of joy. Last week, I started volunteering at the Literacy Centre, teaching adults to read, spending my time on something that matters instead of waiting by the phone for calls that were really invoices. My hands are busy, my mind is engaged. I have purpose that belongs to me, not to my daughter's needs or my granddaughter's schedules. At night, before I sleep, I sit in Robert's chair, my chair, and I listen to the house. It doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels full of possibility, of time that belongs to me, of a life I'm living instead of witnessing, of boundaries that are holding, of dignity reclaimed inch by inch until I'm standing in my own space without apology. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself, the mother who always says yes, the grandmother who exists to serve, the woman who has been erased by her own generosity, let me tell you what I learned. Your silence is not peace. Your sacrifice is not love. Your absence from your own life is not virtue. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to love people and still refuse to be diminished by them. It's not selfish to set boundaries. It's not cruel to expect reciprocity. It's not punishment to stop funding the life of someone who won't acknowledge yours. You are not an obligation. You are not a convenience. You are not invisible. And if they can't see you until you stop giving them everything, then maybe it's time to let them live with the consequences of their blindness. I sit in my quiet house, in my chair, with my books and my coffee and my small expensive comforts, and I am at peace. Not because I'm no longer alone, I was always alone in the ways that mattered, but because now I'm alone on my own terms, with my dignity intact, with my autonomy restored, with my voice returned to me after years of lending it out to people who never intended to give it back. The phone sits on the table beside me. Sometimes it rings. Sometimes I answer. Sometimes I don't. And that choice, that simple, powerful choice, makes all the difference.